These amazing 8 cards is what we're going to be making today. We hope that you will join us as we put these together step by step, including all of the cutting, the prepping, their measurements, and all the way through to completion. Whether you've purchased this collection, which is the simple vintage October 31st from Simple Stories, or you're just looking for inspiration on layering, card making, maybe for some tags or tuck spots in your journals, we hope that you will join us. Hello everyone, it's Madi Azar with Spectrum Art Creations, and we're going to start by looking at our printed instructions, which include full color pictures and templates. So all of the measurements are included in these great instructions, and of course then we'll look at our supplies. But do remember that you can always gather inspiration as well, because they have done a fantastic job on helping us to layer and to maximize paper. It's one of the features that I absolutely love about this kit is that it really helps you to maximize paper and yet be able to do all kinds of layering. The kit includes all of the items that you're going to need, except for some maybe basic items that you'll have around your stash. But you're going to need the 12 6x8 papers. You're also going to need the 6x12 chipboard sticker pieces or some similar items, the full pack of the bits and pieces from the collection or some similar die cuts, half of the enamel pack, the dots. You are also going to need 4 12x12s. You'll need, if you have the kit, 1 Hocus Pocus / pumpkin carving, 1 night sky / full moon, and 2 of the black cat / trick or treat pages. Please remember that you can always pause the video, you can slow it down, you can rewatch it, so work at your pace. We'll start by gathering page 18616, which is pumpkin carving / hocus pocus, and we are going to cut that at 8.5 inches tall. From that 8.5 tall by 12 inches wide, we are going to cut 2 pieces that are going to be 5.5 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall. So now you will have 2 pieces that are 5.5 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall. That last strip at the end we're going to keep, that is going to be exactly 1 inch. We're going to take that strip and we're going to cut it into 3 pieces that are going to be 2 inches wide. So you'll end up with 3 pieces that are going to be 1 by 2. That last little piece is just going to be scrap, and I always suggest that everyone keeps all their scraps because we can always use them later for some additional projects or if we need to mend something. So I will start a scrap pile, and so should you. From the bottom piece, we're going to cut our strip, our name brand off, but don't throw those away. Keep those because they are usable. And now we're going to cut a piece that is going to be 5.5 inches wide. Then we'll turn that piece and cut it at 2 1/4. And again, all of these remaining pieces are scraps, and we are going to put them in our scrap bin or scrap box. So when you are done, you should have a piece that measures 5.5 by 2 1/4. 3 little pieces that are going to be 1 by 2. And then 2 pieces that are going to be 5.5 by 8.5. Now, per the instructions, we can use our scoreboard to score these at 4 1/4. However, I am just going to fold them in half and then I'm going to burnish them down. Now, some I'll burnish now and some I'll burnish as we put cards together, so you can decide. Next, we will find the 12 by 12 18617 night sky / full moon paper. And we are going to do something very similar. We're going to start by cutting it at 8.5 inches tall and leaving the 12-inch width. These are going to be card bases, so you're going to realize that we're going to do this multiple times. Now we're going to turn that over and we're going to cut it at 5.5, and again another 5.5. So we'll end up with two pieces that are 5.5 by 8.5. The remaining strip we're going to cut a 2-inch piece and we're going to keep that. So that's going to be a 1 by 2. So 1 inch by 2 inch, we're going to keep that. And then from the remaining little strip, we are going to cut that at 5.5 inches wide. And then we're going to take that and trim it to a 1/2 inch. So we'll end up with a piece that is 1/2 inch by 5.5. From our top piece, we are going to cut first the name strip off. Then we are going to cut an 8.5 inch piece. We're going to save that square from the right hand side for now, just put it off to the side. Then we are going to cut at 3 inches tall. We're going to take that 3-inch tall piece and we're going to cut two pieces out of it. One is going to be 4.25, and the other is going to be 4 inches. So when we're done with this page, we will have the following pieces. We will have a 5.5 by 8.5, another 5.5 by 8.5. We will have a square piece, which we're going to be using to cut a circle. We're going to have a 1 by 2 piece, a 1/2 inch by 5.5, a 4.25 by 3, and a 4-inch by 3. And again, you can decide now or later whether you want to fold these and of course crease them down and burnish them with your bone folder. Next, we're going to bring back that square piece and we are going to grab the last page of our instruction, which has templates for the circles that we need. Of course, you can always just look around and you can use a mug or a lid or something else that you have in the household. But I am going to be using my die set because it has a faux stitch border around it too, which is really quite pretty. So using your die set, using your mug, using the template that is provided, we are going to cut the 3.25 circle. With my circle cut, one of the things that I like to do is I like to use that remaining piece to actually cut out some corners. So I will cut 4 corners out of that piece. Again, nothing ever goes to waste, right? And then I will save those in my scrap bin for later. And those name strips that we saved, those are totally usable. You can cut them and they are reversible. They have color on the other side. So from your 12 by 12 page, you will have the following 7 pieces. Next, we will work with one of our black cat / trick or treat papers. This is number 18618. The first thing we're going to do is pretty much the same thing we've been doing. We're going to be cutting 8.5 inches tall and leaving the 12-inch wide side. Next, just like before, we're going to turn it on its side and we're going to cut 2 pieces that are going to be 5.5 inches wide. When we are done with those two cuts, we're going to have a 1-inch piece remaining. We're going to take that, we're going to flip it onto its side, and we're going to cut two pieces that are going to be 4¼ inches wide. So they will be 1 by 4¼ . From the top piece, first we're going to cut our strip off from the top, and then we're going to cut a piece that is going to be 5½ inches wide. Then we're going to take that piece and we're going to turn it and we're going to cut it at 3. So we'll end up with a piece that is 5½ by 3 inches. And all the extra goodies we'll save for later projects. At this point, I thought of something. We are going to be doing a lot of cutting, and it would be a really good idea for us to grab everything that we've cut so far and label it. So step 1, we cut our pumpkin carving / hocus pocus paper. I'm going to grab a paper clip and I'm going to put a sticky on it with a number 1. So grab some stickies and paper clips and let's kind of clip all this stuff together. If you have maybe baggies that you would rather use, that's perfectly fine too. But since we're going to be doing a whole lot of cutting, it could be very easy to lose some of these smaller pieces. Plus, I am going to be referencing these numbers that we're using right now. As we get ready to assemble our cards, you will know exactly which pile to go to get each specific piece. So it's going to save us a whole lot of work going forward. All right, so we're again going to be doing all of our prep work first. We're going to be doing a whole lot of cutting and we're going to be labeling. So you see that step 2, of course, was the night sky / full moon paper. So I put a number 2 on that. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the third page that we cut, which was one of our black cat / trick or treat papers, the one that we just finished cutting. And going forward, we're going to use the exact same method. And next, we're going to grab our last 12 by 12. If you're working again with the kit, it is number 18618, the black cat / trick or treat paper. And we're going to do the same thing we've been doing. We're going to cut it at 8½ inches tall, leaving the 12-inch width. Then we're going to flip that over and we're going to cut two pieces that are going to be 5½ inches wide. So then we'll have one little remaining strip on the right hand side. We are going to take that, we're going to flip it, and we're going to cut it at 5½ inches. And then we're going to trim it down some. We're going to cut it down to 3/4 inch wide. That's all that we need to do with this last 12 by 12. The rest of these papers are going to be for our scrap pile. And now we will label this one as step number 4 or set number 4. And now we're going to start working with our 6 by 8 papers. We will start with this Happy Halloween designer page, and on the back it's got the black tonal webs. We are going to cut from the bottom of this 6 by 8 2 strips. From the bottom of our page, we're going to cut a strip that's going to be 1 3/4 inches. Then we're going to take that strip and we're going to cut it down to 1 inch. So we will be left with two pieces, two strips, one that's going to be 1 inch and one that is going to be 3/4 inch. We're going to take the 1 inch piece and we're going to cut it down to 5½ inches. Then we're going to grab the 3/4 inch strip and we're going to cut that down to 4 inches. So then we will have our two pieces and we are going to label those as step or set number 5. The rest, of course, will be going into our scrap pile. In step 6, we're going to find the orange bats / black dots page, and we are going to cut that to 2 3/4 inches tall. Next, we're going to turn that and cut it at 4 inches wide. We will grab the next piece and we are going to cut that at 4 inches tall. Turn it and cut it at 5 1/4. And for our last piece, which is already 1 1/4 inches, we're going to be cutting it at 5 1/2. Now, the instructions do say that these are going to be fishtail banners. I'm not going to do that right now. I will be doing that later on in the process. So you will have the following pieces. You'll have a 4 by 2 3/4. You'll have a 5 1/4 by 4, and you're going to have a 5 1/2 by 1 1/4. And then of course we have our step number 6 completed. So we are going to clip that and label it as step or set number 6. Now we're going to move on to step number 7, the multi-stripe / orange stars piece. This one was the one that gave me the hardest time, so I'm going to cut and show you the way that I figured it out, and hopefully that'll work for you as well. We will start by cutting 2 pieces that are going to be 1 1/4. Next piece we're going to cut is going to be 1 5/8. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am really not good with using the cutter, the guillotine, to do this. So I am going to bring out my trusty ruler just to make sure that I get my measurements right. I also want to point out, if your measurements are slightly off, it is not going to be a big deal in the long run for any of these pieces, guys. So don't worry about that. But we're going to do a 1 by 5/8. And then we're going to do another piece, another strip that is going to be 5/8 of an inch. Once again, I'm going to bring out my ruler just to make sure that I get that 5/8 mark on there. Once we have our 5/8 cut, we are going to bring back those 2 pieces that were 1 1/4, and we're going to cut those down to 3 3/4. So we'll have 2 pieces now that are going to be 1 1/4 by 3 3/4. So again, we're going to have 2 pieces now that are going to be 1 1/4 inches tall by 3 3/4 inches wide. After that, we're going to bring back that piece that was 1 5/8, and we're going to cut that down to 3 inches. So now we will have a piece that is going to be 3 inches by 1 5/8. Now we will bring back our 5/8 of an inch strip, and we're going to cut that down to 2 3/4. Bringing back our larger piece, we are going to be cutting a 3/8 of an inch strip. Once again, I am going to rely on my handy dandy ruler with all of those 16ths and 8ths of measurements, and we are going to mark at 3/8 of an inch and cut that strip. We will take that and we are going to flip it over and cut it to 5.5 inches. And now we are done. From this page, we're going to have the following 5 pieces. 2 pieces, which are going to be 3 3/4 by 1 1/4. 1 piece that is going to be 3 inches by 1 5/8. 1 piece which is going to be 5.5 by 3/8. And the final piece, which is going to be 2 3/4 by 5/8. We will take those and label those as set or step number 7. Next, we're going to work with the Haunted House Designer page with the cream webs on the back side. And we are going to start working from the top of the page. So we are going to turn our page so that we are cutting the top off first. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut a piece that is going to be 3 3/4. We are then going to turn that and we are going to cut at 5 inches. So we'll end up with a piece that is going to be 3 3/4 by 5. Next, from the bottom piece, we are going to cut a piece that is going to be 2.5 inches. We are then going to turn that and we're going to trim it down to 3 3/4. From the remaining piece, we are going to bring that back and we're going to cut another 2.5 inch wide piece. And we're going to leave it as it is already at 4 1/4, which is exactly what we need. The next piece also, it's super simple because we need a 1 by 4 1/4, and that is exactly what that remaining piece is. So there is absolutely no need to cut that. It is 1 by 4 1/4. So when all is said and done, we will have the 2 little bits remaining, and that will complete step number 8. So we will tag that and clip it. That is set or step number 8. When all is said and done, we will have the following 4 pieces. Page number 9 is also a very easy one. We're going to find the black costume kids. So it's a black page with the kids in costumes, and the reverse side has orange polka dots. We are going to take that and we are going to cut it down to 4 inches. Then we're going to take that 4-inch piece, we're going to turn it, and we're going to cut it at 2 3/4. We're going to bring back that other piece and we're going to cut it down to 2.5. And then we're going to shave just a little bit and bring it down to 3 3/4. From the leftover bottom piece, we are going to be cutting at 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. So we're going to be cutting a square. When all is said and done, we will have our 3 pieces. One is going to be 2 3/4 by 4. One's going to be 2.5 by 3 3/4. And then the last piece is going to be a square that is 3 3/4 squared. And then of course we have completed step number 9. And now it's time for step 10. We're going to be using our Hello October designer page, and on the back it's got the multi plaid. Now I'll tell you ahead of time that I completely messed this one up, and I purposely left it so that you guys can see, like I'm always telling you, it is what it is. We can work around it, we can figure it out. So the first cut you're supposed to be doing is supposed to be at 3 1/4. Now, after my second cut, that's when I realized, oh no, I just miscut that because I started doing step 9 again. And this is when I kind of realized it and hit the panic button, which I tell you not to do, right? But for me, it's a little different because I'm filming it. And if I mess it up, then I might make you guys mess up. But anyway, no need to panic. We're going to work with what we've got, and I'm going to give you the correct measurements, okay? So, as I mentioned, the first cut you're going to be doing is going to be at 3 1/4 from the top. Then you're going to take that left-hand side piece and you're going to trim it down to 2 1/2. So when that first piece is done, you will have a 2 1/2 by 3 1/4 piece from the top left hand side where the H and the E are, and then on the other side you're going to have a piece that's going to allow you to cut a 3-inch circle. So this is just me trying to adjust what I had already cut. I'm going to end up short, and that's going to be okay. So that's going to be my right hand side piece, which is going to be for my circle. Next, we're going to cut a piece that is going to be 2 5/8 of an inch. So for that, once again, I'm going to need my ruler to get my eighths properly measured. And again, as I mentioned, I am going to end up just a little bit short on the bottom, and if it was going to make a difference, I decided that I had plenty of scraps that I could use. But as it turns out, this bottom piece was not greatly affected by my miscut, and we'll see that once we actually get to assembling the cards. But again, this piece that we're going to cut now is going to be 2 5/8. We are then going to turn that, and we're going to cut it at 5 1/2. And then your bottom piece should be 2 inches wide. As you can see, mine is going to be short, but that's perfectly okay because yours should be correct. Yours should be 2 inches tall, and then we're going to trim that down to 5 1/4. So when all is said and done, you should have the following 4 pieces. One that's going to be 2 1/2 by 3 1/4. One that's going to be 5 1/2 by 2 5/8. One that's going to be 5 1/4 by 2, and then a piece big enough for you to cut your 3-inch circle. And we are almost done with step number 10. We only have one more thing to do, and that is to cut our 3-inch circle. So using your template or your dies, you are going to cut a 3-inch circle, and then as before, I am going to save those little scraps from the cut and cut myself some corners out of it and save them into my for later use. And now we are ready for step number 11. We're going to find the large orange check, and on the reverse side it's got the cream spiders. We are going to cut a 2-inch strip from this piece of paper. Then we're going to flip that onto its side, and we're going to cut it at 4 inches. And that's it. That's all that we need from this paper. So as I mentioned, we're going to have plenty of leftovers. This completes step number 11. This next step is supposed to be step number 12, but I actually didn't realize that I did step number 15. So we are just going to cut step 15, and then we're going to backtrack to number 12. So we're going to find our elements / black and orange candy stripe page, and we're going to look for the one that's got the Viewmaster on the bottom right hand side. Now the instructions say to fussy cut it, but don't forget you can also use your dies. Or if you have a large enough punch, you can also use a punch, which is what I'm going to use. I tried two different punches, a 2.5 inch and a 2 inch. And I liked the 2.5 inch best because it gave me an orange border around the Viewmaster. The second piece that we're going to need from this paper, we're going to take right from the top. We are going to cut a strip that is 1/4 inch. We're going to bring that back and we're going to cut it at 5.5. So we'll end up with a strip that is 5.5 by 1/4 inch. Those will be the two pieces that we need from this collection, from this paper. Now, remember, this is actually step number 15, not step number 12. I started to write my sticky as 12 and then I realized, nope, this is number 15. So make sure you write 15 and that you click those together and set them aside. That will complete step number 15 or set number 15. And now we are going to move on to step number 12, the real step number 12. We're going to find the Wicked Good Times designer page, and on the back, on the reverse, it's got the cream witches. We are going to cut our first piece, which is going to be 5.5 inches tall. We are then going to turn that page and we are going to cut from the left hand side. We're going to work from left to right. From the left hand side, we're going to cut at 1 3/4. Next, we're going to bring back that piece and we're going to cut at 1 5/8. Now again, I'm going to use my ruler. With our piece marked at 1 5/8, I'm going to cut that. Then I'm going to take that same piece, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to cut it at 3 inches. So I'm going to bring back that piece that we were just working on and we're going to cut it at 3 inches. And then from our bottom, we are going to cut a strip that's going to be 1.5 inches. Once we are done cutting at the 1.5 inch, we are going to turn that and we're going to cut at 5.5. So we'll end up with 3 pieces from this page. We are going to end up with one piece that is 1 3/4 by 5.5. Another piece, a second piece, and that one's going to be 1 5/8 by 3. And then our third piece is going to be 5.5 by 1.5. And on to step number 13. We're going to find the orange costume kids. And on the reverse side, it's got the black stars. Now, we're going to take that and we're going to cut 3 pieces out of it. The first piece we're going to cut is going to be at 2.5 inches. Then we're going to turn that and cut at 4 1/4. From the bottom piece, we're going to cut another piece that is going to be 3.5 this time. And then we're going to take that 3.5 piece and turn it over and cut it at 4 1/4. Last, we're going to take that bottom strip and we're going to cut a 4 1/4 strip out of it, and then we're going to flip that and we are going to cut at 5 1/2. So we'll end up with 3 pieces out of this page. We'll end up with a piece that is going to be 4 1/4 by 2 1/2. Our second piece is going to be 4 1/4 by 3 1/2. And then our last piece is going to be 5 1/2 by 1 1/4. That concludes step or set number 13. We are ready to move on to number 14, and it's a super easy cut. We're going to find the storybook, and on the reverse side it's got the medium black check. We're only going to need one piece from this. So the first thing we're going to do is cut a 3-inch piece from the top. It doesn't really matter where we cut it from because it is not orientation sensitive. We're going to be using the checkered side from this page. And so we're going to cut those 3 inches, and then we're going to turn that over to its side, and we are going to cut a piece, or I'm sorry, we're going to cut that piece to 1 5/8. The rest of that are all extra, so we'll save those for some later projects. This will conclude set number 14, or step number 14. Now, don't forget, we had already cut step number 15, so that's already done. So now let's move on to our last one. Step number 16 is going to require the last piece that we have, which is the elements with the orange text on the reverse. From that, we're going to cut a 1-inch strip from the left-hand side of our paper. We are then going to turn that onto its side, and we're going to cut at 5 1/2. So we will have a piece that is 1 inch wide by 5 1/2 long. Next, we're going to grab our remaining piece and we're going to cut that down to 4 inches wide. We will then turn that onto its side, and we're going to cut our first piece, which is going to be 2 5/8. And finally, our last cut is going to be 4 inches wide, which we already have, and now we're going to trim it down to 5 1/4. So we're just taking a little sliver from the bottom. And so now we will have 3 pieces. One piece is going to be 1 by 5 1/2. The second piece is going to be 4 by 2 5/8. And the third piece is going to be 4 by 5 1/4. This will conclude our final step, step number 16. We have now done all of our cuts. We've done the hard part, and it wasn't that bad, right? We kind of walked through it together. We have all these amazing remaining pieces left to be used, whether it's for this project to embellish even further, or perhaps for future projects as well. But now, with all of our 16 steps or sets all clipped, all ready to go, or bagged maybe and labeled, we are ready to start playing. But since this video is already about 40 minutes long, what I am going to do is I'm going to do a part 2 or possibly a part 3 as well, just so that we can take our time and do each card together as well. Thank you for joining us today in the studio. We hope you have enjoyed part 1. We will see you all in part 2. Have a great one. Bye.